I was lost in my head, looked around, there was no one there. I got out to breathe the fresh air. But you sounds like from the pictures that you sent me and all the that you told me a little bit about yourself, you sound like really like a family and is really important for you. I mean, the family and your parents and your grandparents.
Absolutely.
You're family-centric, if you, I
Yes,
don't know
sir.
if that's the right word. And let's go to the next picture. Oh, look at that. Look at that. So tell me a little about that picture.
So this is, I think, my daughter's second birthday with my parents. My dad is called Tsachi. My mom is called Ruchi. Both are nicknames. And my grandfather in the center, who's really the beacon of our family.
Yeah.
And he has seen everything. I mean, all of my grandparents have had similar stories coming from Eastern Europe, being born in a reality that's perhaps very similar generations and decades and centuries earlier, you know, rural life, etc., as being, you know, a Jewish minority with everything that entails. And then obviously going through the horrors of the Second World War and the Holocaust, and following that, moving to Israel, where they started from nothing, you know, leaving nothing behind, home and family lost, and then creating something from scratch here based on the, you know, the history of Israel with, you know, the Jews coming actually back to their home country. And really we grew up into a reality that was all made by them. Yeah. And yes, we're very family centric. We have a WhatsApp group under this grandfather that you saw.
Yeah.
I said Eastern Europe, by the way, he specifically comes from Hungary, Bodro Keresztül, specific small village there. And all of us, he had 3 kids, I think a total of 18, if I'm not mistaken, grandchildren. Many of these have many kids, thank God. And so today we have a huge WhatsApp group called Together, which was the one word that my grandmother always, you know, that was her motto, Together. And today, after she's the ementic today, but he has taken up so much of what she put up, like cooking her food and running the house the same way and keeping us together and bringing us together. So really, a lot of who we are is thanks to what they put up and how they have led us together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I mean, did you say they are from Hungary?
Yes, sir.
Hungary, and they suffered all the horrors from the Second World War.
Yeah.
Were they at those camps?
Yeah. They saw everything. They were sent. I mean, the Hungarian Jewish population. Here, it's my wife joining.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
So this is Mika and this is Yanina.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You have such a nice family. I'm seeing the pictures. They're it's really beautiful pictures.
Thank you so much. It's all his beauty.
I would argue differently.
Well, she knows better. She knows better.
Yeah.
Well, my 5 does anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, growing up, I mean, going through the Holocaust was a huge thing for them. They were sent different stories. It's very interesting to see how everyone has different stories, both on the general population level and also on the very personal level. You will see my grandfather, for example, he had a sister, a brother, his parents. They had pogroms against the Jews where they lived. So, you know, they had to start wearing the David Star, etc. And then they were moved from village to smaller village, and then they were deported to Auschwitz directly. So really directly into the heart of everything, where his mom and his sister and his dad were directly sent off to, you know, the chambers. So there's stories about the last moments together. Just lately, talking about the deportation, my grandfather's village, who was built up by people who came from the same background, managed to bring one of those train carts over to that village. They have a memorial sort of mini museum there for the types of communities that they had back in Eastern Europe. And for him, seeing that cart brought those memories of deportation. But he has an entire story of how he was deported from his home to other places where they had to figure out how to sleep and where to be, and then to Auschwitz and all those horrors. And they were specifically carpenters, so they were able to get him and his brother, who were younger, about 15, were able to get some kind of work. And then they were moved from place to place, Warsaw, Dachau, etc., until they were finally freed by the Soviets back then.
Yeah.
And then once freed, you try to find something to hold on to. So the first place to go back to was the village, but there was nothing really left. And then from there, they had to figure out what to do. And then that's how the whole migration to Israel started. It's unbelievable stories, really. If you go into every small part of that journey, and the horrors and the experiences that they went through, and also on the bigger level, I mean, it's a nation being born or reborn. So it's very, very, very big.
I kind of have a sense that your grandparents are really strong people. I mean, because they have turned it to something good, because I'm talking to you and your family, and you know what I mean, that they are.
You know, they say lead by example.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant.
So we are a generation of talkers.
Yeah.
And we like to talk and feel, and I love it, by the way, and think. They were, and still are, much simpler. They just do. And you'll try to talk to him and ask him, how did you feel? And it's not there. I mean, it's not that he doesn't feel or didn't feel. It's just, that's not how his mind works. There's the things that he knows are right, and he will do. It's hard to describe, but
I think I get a sense of that. That was actually my question before you said yourself.
Okay.
How do they talk about it, and how to you, or do you think, or to your parents? Did they? It's really hard for me to even imagine what they have been through and the whole nation. Of course, I have.
It's an interesting topic to raise. For 40 years, none of them spoke. I mean, I'm not talking nationally. I'm talking in the village where my parents, that was my mom's father, who I was talking about most of the time until now. So there were a village of about 100 families, all the same type of story, and nobody talked. For 40 years, nobody talked. And funny enough, the first one to start talking after 40 years was my grandmother, with a professor, if I'm not mistaken, who came to the place trying to get those people to start telling their stories, because people started realizing that if they don't talk, or if the generation doesn't talk, we lose that history. I mean, if it's not, so
have you?
So yeah, sorry. So my grandmother or they started talking, and it was like a rainfall of an open Pandora box.
Yeah.
That came out, and it's still being processed, I think, on the national level and also on the individual level. It's funny. My father's father, who came from northern Romania, from a village called Campulung, he passed away before telling his story. And he passed away about 33 years ago. And last year, I'm an analyst. And last year, a year before, we went to Romania, my wife and I, for a trip. And, I don't go somewhere without preparing. So I started learning. I started researching the story. And this is a guy who never told the story. And you talked about my parents and their parents and that complication. So, and my father found it very complicated that I'm digging in his father's secrets. Like the reality in that home was that's something you don't talk about. That the deepest type of taboo that you can possibly imagine. And here I was, I didn't grow up in that house, and I didn't grow up with him really. I just remember him just a bit, and I didn't have that feeling of required not to dig in it. And what happened was I found, this is something we didn't know, that he organized just before he passed, about a year before he passed, he organized a meeting for the first time with all the people that survived from his village in northern Israel.
Yeah.
And it was in that meeting that they told some stories for the first time. It was a weekend that he organized. And really, I realized that he was just going through the same process as the rest of them, of starting to talk about it. But then he passed away, so we never got to really tell the story. So what I found myself is, I found myself in a feeling that I'm actually doing something that he would have done.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going against his will. This is that complication, right? Of where is someone along his process of processing something, of coming to terms and opening up about things, and then that surrounding around it. We said living in, like my father living in his father's house, so keeping it far away. Anyways, it's still alive. That's maybe the final thing to take away.
I gotta get out.